and email, and supposedly no federal government computer can crack this stuff. It's like the mathematics are too long, but you should understand the mathematics of. David Friedman writes about this. He writes particularly about the problems of crypto. For example, if you wanted to have someone killed, using crypto, you could pay somebody $50,000 to kill somebody and no one could find out who you are. So that allows people to have hired killings through technology that, so there's dangers to that. So I was in the middle of answering someone's questions or responding to it, and now I've forgotten where I was. Doesn't matter. Okay, let's go back to Target then. So there's two sides of this. There's commercial privacy information that people talk about, and there's limiting the government. I tend to be more afraid of the government than I am of private corporations. So that's the way I see the topic, but a lot of the literature on privacy and electronic surveillance is trying to stop companies from gathering this information. And all the movies, any movie that shows bad things happening through electronic surveillance, it's a private company. At least that's my impression, yeah.
What about companies trying to surveil their own employees? Replace surveillance?
Yeah, so you could have a discussion of that. Generally, that's done through contract. You start working for a firm and the company says, here's your employment contract, and it includes, if you're using our computer, we can monitor everything. And if you take any information home, we can monitor that, and blah, blah, blah. But you sign a contract that permits that, yeah.
I was saying because I can't remember, it was a sociologist, but he wrote a book and he talked about the concept of leisure, which is work and leisure. And the modern work environment, a lot of people like it was before, you weren't allowed to make personal calls from work. But now a lot of companies,
Yeah.
there's not the rule. You're allowed to make personal calls from work. And a lot of people, like their iPhones and laptops, they bring that home and they do their work at home.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a problem with surveilling people at the workplace. It's that how that, because it's the modern work environment.
Yeah.
That feeds into everything else in their life because they take their work home with them.
Yeah.
Personal stuff at work.
So there's a big industry of developing security tools, like these virtual networks and things like that. So there's a whole industry of trying to allow people to use all this stuff, but to keep stuff secret. It's like people bring their own, IT people would hate it when you brought your own computer to work because it wasn't secure. People would bring in their own printer. These printers, you can hack into somebody's network through a printer if it's got a wireless connection on it. So there's stories of guys going through a building, driving outside of a building with their stuff. They find a computer that's open, or they find a printer that's open, go in through the printer to the computer and break into somebody's system. So there's all sorts of electronic privacy issues that have to do with industrial espionage, the Chinese and others, or one company attacking another, and how do you keep that stuff secure? So that's a big business issue, and the government's trying to do that when they're looking for, terrorism. The same sort of technology operates separately. Let me just briefly mention this privacy stuff, though. Again, when you buy and sell things, there's another side to that transaction. Target has that information. They use that information. They can sell it. You can either have norms, or you can have contracts, or you can have regulations that say what they can and can't do. But the database on you that exists now, the commercial one, has your name, maybe your social security number, has every purchase you've made that they have information about. They have less on you because you're not in public schools. They have a lot of information on people in public schools. So that information is there for all sorts of different reasons. The story with Target, it starts with this man. You may have read this article. This guy storms into the Target and starts yelling at the manager because his 16-year-old daughter is suddenly getting mailings from Target about pregnancy, about baby stuff, and he's saying, how can you send me all this information to my daughter? She's not even 18, and blah blah blah. And anyway, the manager apologizes and all this stuff, and then calls the guy back a couple weeks later to apologize again, and the guy says, well, that's okay. It turns out there was some information I didn't know about. Turns out the daughter really was pregnant. Target knew because their algorithms determined what she purchased indicated that she knew she was pregnant. Right? You buy different hand lotion, you buy different that, and so the point is that companies gather a lot of information from your behavior. And Target learned from that episode not to do what they did and irritate this guy, but what they do when you get a catalog from Target, that catalog is customized to you. So what Target started to do is put little ads in it that had to do with babies without having the whole thing that, I hear you're pregnant. Instead of that, they just have stuff that they might buy. So because it makes sense for Target, if they have a record of what your family buys, if they're going to spend money sending you a mailing, why not send it one that's customized to what you buy, what you might want? And that's not unreasonable. Now, you can't do that with a newspaper where you're throwing them all together, but they customize things place by place. So is that a violation of your privacy to send you a separate thing based on what you've purchased in the past? Or if Target sells that information to somebody else and they use it to sell you stuff? I checked on a Volkswagen Tiguan, Tiguan, online once. I was curious about it. For the next 3 months, every web page I goes to has this Volkswagen Tiguan, because Google was throwing it at me, because Volkswagen had paid Google to say, anytime somebody looks at this, we'll pay to put this up in all these other places. And it took me months to get rid of that thing. I felt I was being stalked by this Volkswagen Tiguan.
I think sometimes the customization of Google, they do that and put certain ads up, it's almost better than what I guess a couple years for ads that things that you haven't searched don't come up as ads. So then you can have a cleaner environment, almost seems like, on the internet. At least that's what I've noticed from researching.
Interesting.
I'll
Yeah.
have ads come up for, just join this governmental agency and pursuing whatever, researching the whole debate here topic, and it's better than having some inappropriate ad come across the screen.
Right. So, in a sense, the companies don't have an incentive to harass you. They've got an incentive to, to show you things that you want to see or might want to see or might buy. So that's their method. So if you were to pass legislation saying they can't use this information. Now, again, I don't know that this is surveillance information. This is database. So in your definitional is information collected from your past purchases. Are these groups all going to know that you came to the Ethos debate camp? And so that maybe they know that debate camp or homeschool debaters buy certain things compared to other things. Maybe the Acme Corporation that makes yellow notepads knows that they need to send you buy a lot of yellow notepads or something like that. Really, you're looking at the question of who owns it and when is it appropriate to use this information. If you're a minor, there's all sorts of restrictions on that information being used. And so I don't know what those rules are for minors. I know there's all sorts of things in the law to protect young people. But yeah, so the database, privacy stuff and database laws maybe are separate from electronic surveillance laws. Laws that monitor, control. When you walk into a store, do they collect that information of people's faces walking around? There's facial recognition software that you can buy where you can track people by their faces. So does Target, do companies do that? I mean, they would be interested to know just where you walked, what you picked up. So, so that would fit into electronic surveillance. Yeah.
Do you think the viability of electronic surveillance can be determined by the purpose of the surveillance policy, as in rapidly trying to stop terrorism by violating privacy, or trying to tailor products and services to you by violating privacy or whatever?
Yeah, so you could say commercial, we'll put restrictions on commercial things where people are trying to make money compared to national security things where people are trying to defend the country. The challenge with that is, what does the government see as a threat? And, Islamic terrorists can be seen as a threat, but again, so can Christian evangelicals. They're a threat to the Democratic Party, right? And maybe the Republicans want to monitor Hispanics because they vote Democrat. So there's a balance to that. People are nervous. But the question is, when do they go from national security to preservation of the party in power through gathering information? And I think that's the risk of giving the government that power.